Welcome to my DIY hardwood floor installation tutorial part 1, first rows. This video will help you ensure success in the installation of the most important row of new hardwood flooring, the first row. I'll share with you what went well and also what I could have saved time on so you don't have to make the mistakes I did. Here I tackled the installation of the first few rows of a large hardwood flooring project at my mom's new built, originally carpeted townhouse. I really didn't know what I was doing at first, as this was my first hardwood flooring DIY. I learned a lot from other YouTube videos. I also figured a lot out by trial and error. I started the project with the most important step, subfloor preparation. I created a separate tutorial just for that in another video, linked in the description below. Ensure your subfloor is properly prepared after watching my subfloor prep video before moving on to the installation of the new flooring. I started the first row along the far long wall of the upstairs. I chose the direction of the row to be perpendicular to the joists underneath the OSB subfloor. The builder used OSB or oriented strand board as the subfloor in this townhouse. OSB is not as durable as the 3/4 inch thick and 4¼ wide solid oak flooring boards I was installing, so it was important to install them perpendicular to the joists to ensure maximum strength and longevity of the new floors. I selected the longest and most straight flooring boards for the first row and placed trims between the wall and first row to ensure a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch expansion gap. The long wall of the room is not perfectly straight, so the expansion gap varied from a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch due to the waves in the wall. To avoid contouring to the waves in the wall, I first used a long straight board as a giant ruler to draw a perfectly straight line to line up the tongue side of my first row. The tongue side is always going to be facing away from the starting wall. Your line has to be drawn at the exact distance from the wall, which equals the width of your flooring boards plus the minimum expansion gap. I placed my straight board ruler specifically to ensure the line I drew was exactly perpendicular to the other two ending walls of the room rather than exactly parallel to the waving long starting wall. Once my board was in place, I carefully drew the line along the outside of my board. You can use a chalk string or a very straight long board to draw this line. This is a very important step without which you could face a headache of ugly gaps and curves in your flooring boards closer to the middle of the room. I aligned the tongue side of the first row with the line I drew on the roofing felt I chose as my underlay. As you may notice, I left the skirting boards in place. These are normally removed before installing new floors, but I decided that a new doorstop trim installed over the expansion gaps was gonna be just as good as removing and reinstalling the baseboards. I was very happy in the end with this decision, as the doorstop trim looks as if it was always part of the complete baseboards. I first face nailed the boards next to the wall where my future doorstop trim will cover the nail holes. I also blind nailed the first row at a 45-degree angle above the tongue. Both my blind and face nails were about 2 to 4 inches apart. It's best to use a 16-gauge nailer for the face and blind nailing. I did not have a 16-gauge nailer and improvised with an 18-gauge 2-inch brad nailer. In addition to manually hammering 2-inch flooring nails, 18-gauge brad nails on their own are too thin for oak flooring. They did help keep the boards in place during my installation, since I was also using good old-fashioned manual nails and hammer. I would recommend using a 16-gauge nailer and will be sure to obtain one myself for any future hardwood flooring project. I manually sank down any nails from the brad nailer, which did not initially sink fully. I inserted adjustable shims between the first row and the wall to keep it in place for the next step, since the powerful nailer used in the following rows could shift the first row if it isn't supported with shims against the wall. Since my flooring boards are 4¼ inches wide, I was able to use my nailer starting with the second row, and the nailer was far enough from the wall to sit on the board the way it was designed to. I used 16-gauge L cleats in the flooring nailer hooked up to a compressor. I was working on the third level of a 3-story townhouse and had my miter saw in the garage. To save time, I left the last board in a few adjacent rows uninstalled so I could run down and up the stairs with several boards to cut at the same time. For the row and boards, I selected board sizes either to almost match the size I needed to complete the row or a much longer board so that whatever I cut off does not go to waste and can be used as the starting piece in the next row. I also ensured that the second last board in each row does not cause the very last piece to be shorter than 4 inches. Anything shorter could look odd and be harder to install and not be as durable. I nailed the 16-gauge L cleats at about 5 to 8 inches apart and about 1 inch away from each end of each board. I continued to install consecutive rows, making sure I install each row close to fully before starting the next row. If you start consecutive rows before the previous rows are at least 60% complete, you may end up with curving rows in the end. This project was at my mom's 3-level townhouse. It involved the full 3rd level with 2 bedrooms and walk-in closets, a stair landing and hallway, and 2 bathrooms with hardwood to tile transitions. The house was fully furnished when I started this work, so I prepped and completed the new floor install in 1 bedroom before moving on to the rest of the upstairs level. This was my first DIY hardwood flooring project, though I am not a professional carpenter. I am a dedicated woodworker and homeowner and have successfully completed many interior and exterior home upgrades with my own hands. Thank you for watching part 1 of my hardwood flooring installation. Linked in the description below are videos related to the rest of the project, including subfloor preparation, mistakes and challenges, the rest of the flooring installation, including the important last 2 rows, and more.